In this video, I'll show you exactly how to set up, record, and mix an a cappella multi-track in Audacity. If you want to learn the full DIY recording process from gear recommendations to the final mix, grab the free step-by-step guide linked below. Audacity, while lacking a lot of features of a professional DAW, is powerful enough to get you recording music and is a great place for beginners to start. I have Audacity opened up here on my computer. I'm assuming that you already have it installed. If you don't, it's easy to download it from Audacity's website and install it. The first thing you always want to do is save your project. Before you do anything, you can save it either to your device or to the cloud. I prefer to save it to my device. Always hit save. I can't begin to count how many students of mine have lost a lot of hard work because they failed to hit save. So always hit save before you begin. Now that I have my project saved, I need to make sure that Audacity is recording from my audio interface and not from my computer's internal mic. I once recorded half a project on my computer's internal mic and was struggling with terrible quality before I finally realized that I had it set to the wrong mic. So always double check this. Go to the Edit tab and Preferences. Here under Audio Settings, I can choose my playback device and my recording device. I'm using my Focusrite USB audio interface, so that is set correctly, and I also want that for my playback device. We'll get to the latency compensation here in just a moment because this is important to set, but the first thing we'll do is we will set a rhythm track. You always want to record with a rhythm track. It's going to make your song much tighter and the recording process much easier. To do that in Audacity, click on Generate and then Rhythm Track. This will make a new track as well as open up this dialog box which gives you some options for some settings for the rhythm track. You can set the number of bars. I just chose 163. I think that will be plenty for what I'm doing. And you can choose the beats per bar as well as the tempo. I want 140 beats per minute. There's also a few other things you can change, the sound here and such like. I'm going to leave that on the default and hit generate. And now I have a rhythm track. I'm just going to take a listen to that and make sure it's coming back through my USB audio interface. So that's playing back through. The next thing I need to do is set the sync. And this is super important. Having this wrong can cause you all sorts of problems when you're recording a multi-track recording. Getting everything synced up before you even begin will save you a lot of headaches. To sync it up, I need to figure out the amount of time it takes for the computer to play this audio, process it, send it through the audio interface to the headphones, and then record that same audio back into the audio interface and process it again. I need to figure out how much time delay there is in that process. To do that, I'm going to add another track. And I'm going to record this metronome back into the second track. I'm going to do that by turning up the volume on my headphones, placing them close to my microphone, and then recording. Now I can zoom in on this track by clicking and then hitting the Control key while scrolling, and I can see that this metronome beat was recorded here on the timeline. So the difference in time here is the amount of delay. So I can just simply select the difference here on the timeline and go from the beginning of this beat to the beginning of where it was recorded. And I can see here that my time selection was 0.861 seconds to 0.992 seconds. And I can calculate the difference between that in my calculator. 0.992 take away 0.861 is a difference of 0.131 seconds. This means I need to change my sync offset by 0.131 seconds to get this to line up. I can do that by clicking on Edit, Preferences, and I see here my latency compensation is currently 112 milliseconds. I need to add to that the 0.131 seconds or 131 milliseconds. We don't have to get it exactly, but that will be approximately 240. So I will set my latency for 240 milliseconds and delete this audio track and repeat the same process. Add a new track, turn up my headphone volume, make sure my direct monitoring is off so I don't have feedback, hold the headphones close to the microphone, and hit record. If I zoom in, I can see that I'm really close. It looks like I am about 4 milliseconds off. So I'm going to change it by 4 milliseconds. Make that 244, negative 244. And I should be synced up. I'm recording an a cappella song, which means that the next thing I need to do is generate a pitch track. I can do this by adding a new track. I'll add a mono track, clicking on generate and then tone, and I'm going to leave it on the square waveform, but you could use any of these. I am going to be singing my song in the key of E flat, which is 311.127 hertz. You can do a quick Google search if you need to find the conversion from key to frequency. 311.127 is the key of E flat. I'm going to change my duration to seconds and generate 140 seconds. Might take a bit of time. Now that I have my tone generated, I'm going to take a quick listen to that. Okay, that is very loud, so I'm going to decrease the volume of that tone. And now I have a track that I can sing along with. Having a tone and a rhythm track to sing along with is important for an a cappella track because it's pretty easy to vary in pitch and in tempo. So the rhythm track will keep me on beat, and the tone track or the pitch track will keep me on pitch. If you are serious about doing your own DIY recording, then check out my DIY recording guide in the description. It will give you a step-by-step guide for doing your own home DIY recordings, as well as your own DIY music videos. Next thing I need to do is set my levels. I'm going to right-click on the recording level monitoring, check enable silent monitoring, and now it's going to be monitoring my levels. And so you can see here that I've got some volume that I'm picking up. I'm going to move this microphone in a bit closer. Ideally, I want to be at about 6 to 8 inches when I'm recording vocals, no closer than 6 inches, and probably not further than 12 inches, somewhere in that range. So I'm looking like I want to be about here. It's better to record on the quiet side and then boost the volume after. So I'm here peaking at about negative 24. When I'm singing, I might be singing a bit louder yet. So I think that'll give me enough headroom. So I'm happy with my volume levels. Make sure that you're not up into the negative 6 dB range. If you're that close to peaking, you will potentially have problems. I'm now ready to start adding my tracks for recording. So I'm going to go to tracks and hit add new mono track. I'm going to repeat this 8 times because I'm going to be doing an 8-track multi-track recording. I now have 8 tracks. I'm going to rename them all to match up with the part I will be singing. I will be double tracking each part, so I'll have 2 lead tracks, 2 bass tracks, etc. I'm going to set each part a different color. Lead, I'll leave at the default. Bass, I'm going to change the color to Instrument 2 color. Audacity only gives you 4 options. Baritone, Instrument 3 color, and tenor, Instrument 4. Now I'm going to select lead 1, and I'm ready to start recording. I'm not going to be singing the whole song for this video. I'll hopefully record the whole song at a later date, but I'll just do part of a verse so you can see how the process works. I'm going to give myself 2 measures of space for a count-in. When I'm recording, I like to take one headphone off just so I can hear myself a little better. So here we go. In need of bass. That's the first take of the lead part. I'm going to now double track that by clicking on lead 2 and hitting record again. In need of grace, in need of love. Now I have 2 lead tracks recorded. That ensures that I'm on pitch. I can now mute that tone because it can be a little bit obnoxious there in the background. And I'm going to record my bass next. I always like to do lead first and then the bass tracks and then fill in the harmony parts in between. I'll click on bass 1 and hit record. In need of grace. And now bass 2. Let's take a listen to what we have so far. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above. Okay, so we've got a good foundation there. It's not perfectly tight. There's a few consonants that are slightly off, but it's going to be good enough for now. I'm going to go on to the baritone. And baritone 2. I'm going to take a listen back to what we have again.
In need of grace, in need of love.
And now I'm ready to record the tenor. There are a few parts in the tenor that are a little dissonant compared to the bass, so I'm actually going to mute the bass to record the tenor. It's going to make it easier to hit those notes cleanly, and then I'll bring the bass back in. And the last tenor. Okay, so now I have all my parts recorded, at least rough takes. There might be some errors yet, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute the bass, and I'm going to mute the rhythm track, and we'll take a listen through this.
In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me.
And this is the point where you need to decide how picky you're going to be. There were a bunch of little errors in that, some notes that were slightly out of pitch, some notes that were slightly out of timing, and I could go back through there and spend hours and hours and hours trying to get that perfected, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it just like it is to show you how even an imperfect recording can actually sound amazingly good once you get it mixed properly. So we're going to go back in and get this mixed down and see what we can do. The first thing I want to do when getting this mixed down is get the volume levels balanced a bit. My baritone was a bit loud, so I'm going to pull that down and find a better balance for the other parts.
In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me.
Okay, I pulled the baritone and the tenor down a little bit. That gets us closer so we can hear what's going on. Next thing I'm going to do is do a bit of EQing on this. So depending what you're listening to this on, you might not be able to hear this, but it's got a bit of a boxy sound. It's because the room I'm recording in isn't perfectly ideal. Usually I do my recordings in a vocal booth, but I didn't for this one. And so it's got a bit of a boxy feel because it's a less than perfect room. So I'm going to do some EQing. To do this, I'm going to click on Effects, and this opens up this panel where I can add effects that are non-destructive. So in Audacity's more recent updates, they've added this feature. In the old days with Audacity, when you applied effects, they changed the audio and you couldn't go back and undo them. So this is a big leap forward. It gets Audacity closer to being an actual DAW. We can now add effects that are non-destructive, which means we can turn them on and off, we can remove them at any time, and the actual underlying audio is never changed. I'm going to click on Add Effect, and I've already installed a VST3 instrument known as Soundly Shape It. I'll quickly show you how to find this one. It's a great free EQ that you can use in Audacity. So click on Get More Effects. That will open the musehub.com window, and if you search for EQ, you can find the Shape It EQ. Now, in order to install this, you're going to need to have the MuseHub app, and so if you click on this and click Install, it's going to ask you to install the MuseHub app first, and then once you install the MuseHub app, then you will be able to go ahead and install the Shape It. Once you've installed the MuseHub app and installed Shape It, then it should show up here in Audacity when you click on Add Effect, VST3, and Soundly Shape It. If it doesn't, try closing Audacity and reopening it, and then it should show up. I'm going to open it up, and now this plugin is on the lead track, and it is going to allow me to EQ just this lead track. I'm going to solo this. And what you can see is that there's a whole bunch of these lower frequencies, which we actually don't need any of this. Below 50 in a human voice, none of that is good stuff. So I'm going to click on this and drag down, and by default it's going to select a low cut filter for me, and I'm just going to drag this up. That's going to get rid of the low end rumble, a lot of room noise, fans, lights buzzing, trucks rumbling past and such like that lives in those low frequencies. So I can pull that up and get rid of a bunch of those. The other thing I'm noticing, which is pretty typical of recordings in small spaces like this, and it's what gives it the boxy sound, is here around the 200 to 500 hertz, there's a pretty big spike there. Now, somewhere in here is where my fundamental is going to be, which is the actual note that I'm hitting, but then there's these resonant frequencies above, and there's typically a spike in the 200 to 500 hertz range in a room of the size and shape that I'm in. So I'm going to do a little cut here, and we'll have to experiment with this as we add everything back in, but I'm going to go with this for now and take a listen. In need of grace, in need of love. You can hear when I boost it, it really brings that boxiness in, and then when I cut it, it pulls it back. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining. Minus 3.2 decibels is going to be a pretty good spot for us for now. We might change that as we go along. Often there's a spot here in the higher frequencies that you can do a little boost just to make it sound a bit better. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down. Okay, a little boost around the 8K mark here I think is going to add a bit to that. Now, in general, when mixing, you want to be really careful about EQing solo tracks. So that just gave me a bit of an idea of what sort of sound I'm working with and what my room sound is bringing to it. I'm going to unsolo that now, and I'm going to spend a bit of time EQing each of these tracks. So I'll give you the basic idea now, and then I'll get into it. What I'm going to do is the lower parts, like the bass, I'm going to leave more of the low frequencies in and carve out some of the high frequencies. But then on the higher parts, like the tenor, I'm going to carve out a bunch of the lower frequencies, but then leave the higher ones in. Basically, when you have an a cappella song, it's entirely the human voice, and you end up with a lot of overlapping frequencies. And if you have a whole bunch of parts from the same voice, there's still a lot of overlapping frequencies, and you can end up with this really big buildup of certain frequencies. So I'm going to try to carve out space in some parts and then let other parts occupy those frequency spaces. So I'm going to do some fairly aggressive EQing on some of this, probably more aggressive than you would do if it wasn't an a cappella song. The lead part, however, I want to leave the most natural because that's what is going to be carrying the melody and standing out the most. I'm going to unsolo lead 1, add an effect to lead 2. We'll add the same soundly shape it. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength. For the bass, I'll add the same low cut filter, cutting out below 50 hertz, but then I won't cut much in the mid-range, and I'll just cut a bunch probably around the 1K, 2K mark. Let's take a listen. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above. I'm going to change the Q value here, which will change the slope of this curve to 0.4. That lets me take a bit of a broader cut of these mids and highs. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of... And I'll do a similar thing on bass 2. In need of grace, in need of love. I'm going to jump to the tenor and add the EQ on that. For the tenor, I'm going to pull that low cut up a bunch higher and then add a pretty significant dip here in the 200 to 500 and really only leave the top end. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above. And I'll do a similar thing to tenor 2. From high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me. And you can see I did it even more aggressive on tenor 2. Once it's all said and done, we'll see how that feels. I might end up going more aggressive on tenor 1, but I'm going to go back to baritone now, and we'll do a similar thing on baritone. Need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above. And on baritone too as well.
Need of grace.
Okay, so just with that, a bunch of EQing, some fairly simple stuff, not too high tech. I've got rid of a bunch of that boxy sound, and I think we're sounding a bunch better again. Now, of course, I could spend hours fine-tuning this, but I'm going to keep speeding ahead, and I'm going to go to the master effects, and we're going to add a reverb to this, and that's going to make the whole thing pop just a bit more yet. I'm just going to use Audacity's default reverb here, and let's take a listen to the default settings.
Need of grace.
Not a big fan of that. I'm going to go to factory presets, and let's take something like Vocal 2, I believe. Let's try that.
Need of grace, in need of love.
If I want to change the amount of reverb, I can adjust the wet gain, which is the gain on the effect itself.
Need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above.
Okay, as always, I could spend a lot more time with that, but that gets us close. So I've simply recorded, added some EQ, and added some effects. I've done no pitch correction. I've done no bumping things around or cutting or pasting or anything like that. There's a lot of editing, fine-tuning things that I could do, but this gets us a pretty decent sound. This gets us 80% of the way there, I would say, and that last 20% would be another couple hours of work. But let's just take a listen from start to finish on what we have so far.
In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me.
I could add a compressor if I'd want to, especially this baritone here. Some of it gets a bit loud. I could add a compressor to that. I could add a bunch more effects, but that gets beyond the scope of what I'm trying to do in this video. The last thing I'm going to do to polish this up is to just get rid of my breaths and my humming and such like at the beginning of the song. I can scroll in and select this and go up here and click Silence Audio Selection. That will get rid of any unwanted breath or humming sounds before I actually start singing. Another way I could do the same thing is hover over the beginning of the track and drag this back. And I'll do the same thing at the end of the song. The final thing I'll do on today's mix is to do some panning. Panning parts right and left can increase the width of the sound and can make a recording sound a lot better. So I'm going to do that next as a final step. The bass I'm going to pan the furthest. I'm going to pan the one bass quite a bit to the right and the other quite a bit to the left.
In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above.
The baritone I'm going to pan both of them slightly to the right, and then the tenor I will slightly to the left.
In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of...
I like to leave the lead dead center, and then bass I often pan the widest, and then baritone to the one side and tenor to the other. And let's take a listen to what this sounds like.
In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me.
All right, that wraps up this video on setting up, recording, and mixing an a cappella song in Audacity. As always, there's more that could be done, and we haven't even got into mastering yet, so there's always more to do, but that gets us started. If you're interested in learning more about DIY recording, I've made a DIY music recording guide that you can check out in the description, download it down below, and it will walk you through the steps on recording your own DIY music. If you want to learn to film a music video for your song, then watch this video next.